so happy we alive.
All right, here we are at St. Louis University at DeBerg Hall with President Lawrence Biondi, and we're about to just take a little inside look at the incredible art collection that President Biondi has put together for the students of St. Louis University, what we call the St. Louis University families.
That's right.
From the big picture.
Well, a very interesting story that I'd like to relate to you is about 1987. I got to know Marion Cartier, the only daughter of Pierre Cartier of the Cartier Jewelry Company of Paris. In fact, she contacted the university through her attorney because she wanted to give a little donation to St. Louis University because her mother, Elma Rumsey, was born in St. Louis. And Elma Rumsey married Pierre Cartier. Elma Rumsey, at the age of 18, was sent by her parents to New York to go to school. And she met Pierre Cartier, who was bringing jewelry from Paris to New York in order to sell it. And so they were married 2 years later, and several years later, Marion was born at the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City. Marion Cartier was an avid painter. She really liked and appreciated art. And so at a young age, she took up painting, and she was instructed, and she went to school in Paris, and she began to paint a good number of her own paintings. And this painting right here, she did not paint, but it's of her father, Pierre Cartier. It was painted in 1916. And Pierre Cartier was one of three brothers. There was Louis, Jacques, and Pierre, who founded the Cartier Jewelry Company. And basically, Jacques and Charles stayed in Europe, in Paris, basically selling the jewelry. And in a conversation that I had with Marion, she wanted to know whether our students here at St. Louis University would be interested in her art. And so we promised that once she would get the paintings here at the university, we would exhibit them in various areas and our museums here at the university. And she was an eclectic painter. She had all kinds of themes. Sometimes she would paint portraits of her family and grandchildren and babies, and other times she painted scenes, as you can see this scene here. She lived in New York for a period of time, and she did this. Basically, she called it Times Square, and it was painted in 1945.
Really?
And it has all kinds of hustle and bustle.
There's all kinds of things going on.
Broadway and 45th Street, yes.
Wow. What's this called?
It's called Times Square.
Oh, okay,
it shows
Times Square.
A collage of all the activity and the shows and the traffic and the buses and the metro of Times Square in New York City.
And these other, you have other paintings, Bob?
Yes. These are other paintings that she's done. This one in particular, she was very fond of working and helping sisters, nuns, especially with regard to orphanages and nursing homes. In fact, she helped found a hospital in Nairobi in Africa.
Oh, wow.
So she was very, very fond of elderly people. And so this is a nice painting of hers that was painted in 1957.
It looks like we have a nun on a bicycle here. Is that,
Right. Right.
Is that what's going on
That's
there?
right. And you can see the elderly people there and some children visiting their grandparents.
Uh-huh.
And the second other painting right here is called the Clock Tower. You can see right in the middle, this must be a French village that she painted in 1985.
Uh-huh.
It's called Rue du Village avec Clocher, and she just kind of pictures a very nice, with beautiful colors, a small village in France, and you can see the sign saying Tabac, where they would sell tobacco products.
Uh-huh.
And you see a chicken and several chickens walking in the way.
Uh-huh. Chickens, dogs, and Very.
The clock tower, obviously, most of her paintings, I would say, if you take a look at her paintings, it took me a long time to discover this, but there was always one central point in her paintings which just stood out, whether it was a ribbon around a woman's hat that was all red, or I've seen paintings of friends of hers that had very colorful green earrings, or there's one gentleman with a bow tie. Just something just stands out in every one of her paintings, and you can see here that the clock tower is the central point of the painting, which obviously dominates this painting.
How about the sculpture that you have here? There's
this sculpture was purchased from an artist from the Seattle area. Previn is his name, and he wanted a cat. He was also a student here at St. Louis University, and he basically wanted. Pardon me, he was Jesuit educated. He did not go to St. Louis University. I believe he went to Regis in Denver, and here he wanted to show about the. And this piece is called Defiance, because this is a slave woman who was so proud and yet so defiant in terms of slavery. And you can see that she has, her face is just not of a slave, but of a person with dignity. She's not holding her head down, but she's holding her head with dignity. And yet she's stressed. Here's a woman, if you take a look at her toes, are curled. She's just standing there on the slave block, but she's tense and she's defiant. She's not going to let these white slave masters take advantage of her. And yet, if you see not only the shackles, the handcuffs on her hands, but behind, she's been whipped. You can see the marks on her back.
Oh my gosh! No, that's I would have never. I would have never noticed that.
This speaks volumes about the fact that we in the United States had a very terrible period of time in which we did not treat people well, and we had slavery in our country. But here's a woman who, I think, in this sculpture piece, stood up in her own personal way, saying, I am not going to be, I may be shackled, I may be whipped, but I am not going to give in to the system, and I have my own dignity.
Yeah, it seems like the dignity
It speaks volumes.
oozes
speaks
from
volumes.
the statue. But there's...
I'd like to show you this window. I don't know if you can
good.
put this up.
Uh-huh.
We have had, because this was a former library, there are 4 windows depicting the history of the written word. And I suspect that this is the only stained glass window in the entire world that shows the last development of the written word with a computer.
No kidding.
Here you can see
Oh,
somebody.
I didn't even notice.
Here's a person at a PC.
Uh-huh. I didn't even notice.
You know, we began out with the scribe writing down words, for example, when he would hear something spoken. And then with the next period of the manuscript, or the writing, was the manuscript, in which you would have a picture beginning a chapter, kind of summarizing what is contained in a particular chapter. And then, of course, the next development of the written word, or the written spoken word, which is then written, was the printing press. And then we have a stained glass window of the printing press. But here we have the next development of the word, and that's why you have the large C is for the computer.
Oh, how unusual.
And this is designed by a local St. Louis artist called Rodney Winfield, and the Emil Fry Associates. That is a long-established stained glass company.